Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, the year in review. This was the year of the mass strike. Unfortunately, Foundation operatives, ad busters, turned it into the year of the dupes in this country as well. But still, some effect has been attained. It started with the resistance against the fascist Governor Walker and his union-busting program in Wisconsin. One of the spin-offs of this was the Ohio agitation, and I think this has to stand as probably the most important single victory of the year, was that the fascist Kasich reactionary program to get rid of the unions in Ohio was forced into a general referendum, and in spite all the gold of the Koch brothers, this was defeated 61 to 39. 61% said no to the union-busting program of Kasich, and he was shaken. You could see he was shaken to his reactionary fascistoid core the evening of that vote, right, election night. 61% to 39, even with all the stuff that Koch throws. My thesis, this is New Deal America. This is not libertarian America. This is not the America talked about by anybody in those Republican debates. Not one of them has an idea of this country. This is not a center-right country. This is New Deal America. You ask people, should millionaires pay an extra tax? 81% of Americans say yes. So that's about what it is. The Tea Party and everything in that corner is at most about 20%, if they're lucky, depending on how the program is put forward. So 61 to 39 in Ohio. Now, what it also shows is what an albatross Obama is around the neck of agitation and mobilization in favor of working people. And then, of course, we've had Occupy Wall Street, which we've amply discussed, I think. The principal problem is, where's your program? What are you standing for? Who are you fighting for? Do you have anything to offer to the women, the workers, the blacks, the Hispanics, the farmers, soldiers, the rest of the world? Or are you simply there because you think you have the right to occupy the park, and as these right-wingers never get tired of saying, defecate in the park? They're absolutely obsessed with this. Even this morning here in WMAL in Washington, the guy was ranting about this stuff. They can't get beyond this. But, of course, there's nothing else for them to respond to. They have an easy job. If this had put forward one big idea, tax Wall Street turnover with a Wall Street sales tax, then they'd be forced to talk about that and not about the porta potties and the rest of this. I noticed that Kevin Zeese down here at the Freedom Plaza, he's gotten a permit to keep his tent city going until February 28th. So he's got 2 more months, January and February. He hasn't come up with a program yet. You go down there and ask them, what is it that you're striking for? What is it that you want? And they said, well, we have our General Assembly and our facilitators, and we have our consensus, and we have all this stuff, and we're here in the park, and we want to have our space. We want to defend space. What a load of baloney. Joe Sixpack has no time for this stuff. So that's of course the microcosm of what's going on around the world, right? The National Endowment for Democracy, the National Republican Institute, the National Democratic Institute, the rest of them, the Freedom House, which has also been shut down in Egypt and so forth, all of them meddling, trying to provide their fake leaders, right? Pro-imperialist, pro-globalization, pro-Wall Street, pro-City of London, and all the rest of it. So what's likely to happen immediately? Well, if we go back to 1848, 1849, there is likely to be a flare-up now in the spring of 2012. It could be, I don't know where, Algeria, Indonesia. You tell me. There will be a big attempt to do it in Beijing and Moscow. Remember that in 1848, the high point of the year was the June days in Paris. That's pretty much, I guess, comparable to Libya, or maybe the November shootings in Tahrir Square in Egypt. But in the early part of 1849, we have Mazzini, the British agent Mazzini, leading a coup in Rome, driving out the Pope and setting up Mazzini's Roman Republic. with the help of the assassination of Pellegrino Rossi, the minister of Pius the Ninth. There was also a war pretty much in Hungary with Kossuth leading the insurrection and Russian troops coming in the springtime to crush the Hungarians on request from the Habsburgs in Vienna. And I guess the last hurrah for the 1848-49 was the dissolution of the Frankfurt Assembly by the Prussian army, dispersing them in May of 1849. So I would say the likely possibility is that the current agitations could be kept going until May or June. After that, there's going to be a reflux, which will be characterized by a lot of cynicism and a lot of pragmatism and a lot of tough-mindedness, as the history books tell us. There is, of course, an attempted Russian destabilization. We'll talk about this in a minute. Putin has said he wants to start now. The South Stream pipeline has got to be built, start the building in 2012. The Nord Stream pipeline had been essentially put into action in 2011. Notice, by comparison, the U.S. is paralyzed on something as simple as this Keystone pipeline. Everybody else is building infrastructure. The U.S. can't do it. Notice in China, the Washington Post editorial this morning, the 30th of December, attacks China over a jail sentence for a dissident by the name of Chen Wei. And they're very, very uptight about the Chinese publishing some articles condemning the activity of a U.S. diplomatic meddler, right? One of the mad dogs in striped pants. This is the U.S. consul in Hong Kong by the name of Stephen Young. And he has been criticized in newspapers, right? Say, Wen Weibao, pro-Beijing, pro-regime. In Hong Kong, however, and their quote is, wherever he goes, there is trouble and so-called color revolution. They say this is about Stephen Young. He comes from an anti-Chinese, anti-communist family, says Wen Weibao. They also warn that the U.S. ambassador Gary Locke is no good, even though he has Chinese descent. His Chinese blood makes Chinese people feel close to him, but this has exposed the evil purpose of the U.S. to use Chinese against Chinese to instigate political turbulence in China. Well, that's about right. They also don't like Huntsman, who's now running for president. They didn't like that Huntsman showed up at a McDonald's where there was supposed to be a protest. So there is an attempt going on for color revolution in over there in China. But the big one, of course, right now is Russia. I would point out the following things here. Let's go back a little bit. The people who are out there in the demonstrations in Moscow, there's a big demonstration, big, tens of thousands, right? So what, 20,000, 30,000 on the 24th of December, which is not Christmas Eve in Russia at all, because of the Orthodox Church calendar. But a lot of these people are between 20 and 40 years old. They don't know what happened in the 1990s. Let's remind a little bit. We're also marking 20 years since the fall of the USSR, and I think the conclusion we'd have to draw is it would have been better for the USSR to remain in existence, or at least most of it. The USSR destroyed by what? By Austrianism, by the Austrian school, the libertarian school of political economy that we've been discussing earlier. And we'll be back in a minute here on World Crisis Radio.